Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. With many thanks to the organizer of this Al Faraka Forum in Istanbul for the first time. So I do have a topic, how we can use SMEs for promoting sustainable growth and using Islamic finance. So the question is, what is SMEs? We know the definition. Different countries uses different definition in terms of volume, in terms of employment. But it has been found that the foundation of both developed and emerging markets in terms of providing employment, opportunity, sustainability, and economic growth. And in general, roughly about 60% of the employment are created in the entire world, the global survey shows, through the SME. And this SME is anywhere between 33% of the GDP to 51% of the GDP of these different countries are being generated by SMEs. Now, SMEs also is a very high-risk enterprise business formation. It faces different risks. So it's high transaction cost, ability of skilled human resources, legal and regulatory environments, access to technology, and inadequate access to market. Now, the major issue for this SME is access to capital. And the financing gap in developing countries becomes even more severe when the financial institutions such as banks widely consider SMEs as non-bankable, because it's not an insurable risk for the conventional as well as Islamic financial institution because the model they have taken. And this financing gap is about roughly $2.4 trillion. So it is a challenge, global challenge for developed and developing countries, how to give capital to SMEs for bringing up their enterprises. So here are some data that shows what is the financing gap. If you look at Turkey, about 20%, the access, if 100% is the ideal, only they have the 20% of the market. And it also has different variation. Now, one variation is whether is are well-served, underserved, or unserved. If you look at the data, the majority of the SMEs either underserved or unserved. So how the question is, conventional banking or finance as well as Islamic finance, how can it fill this gap? Now, in 2015, a number of priority support SMEs were developed in G20 presidency of Turkey, achieving inclusiveness both on a domestic and global scale to ensure the growth and prosperity are shared by all segments of the society, including SMEs. Now, the supporting the integration of SMEs, especially in developing countries, in global value chains, promoting non-traditional way of financing or non-banking financial method in order to reach to the SME sectors. Now, I already know Islamic finance, a catalyst for inclusive growth. Specifically in the case of SMEs, financial inclusion can be addressed by Islamic finance through promoting risk-sharing contracts as a viable alternative conventional financing. Now, the relevance of the Sharia-compliant SME financing and risk-sharing characteristics from an Islamic perspective has been recognized by various policymakers in different countries and international bodies such as the OIC. Now, this is the latest figure came out on the Global Development Indicator. Right now, the market is about $4.5 trillion. It grew from 2022 to 2023, 11%. There are almost 2,000 financial institutions all over the world. But if you look at on the right-hand side of the pie diagram, almost majority, 72%, are done by Islamic banks. But we have to understand the Islamic banks, God has forbidden riba, but God did not tell us create a bank. That is our human invention. But what I find that when Islamic finance movement started, we started with the wrong footing. We have taken a model from a conventional banking fractional reserve system. Even conventional banking cannot really provide financing SMEs. We are facing the same problem for Islamic finance as well, so we need to change the figure. Now, there are key principles the audience know about, so I'll skip, but I want to emphasize 4 very salient points for Islamic finance. Riba is prohibited. Why? Earning money from money or interest is prohibited. Profit which is created when money is transformed into capital via human effort is allowed. However, some forms of debt are permitted where these are linked to real transactions. Sale has to be there, even in Morabha transaction, and where this is not used for purely speculative purposes. So what is the linkage to market? A real return for real effort is emphasized. Investment cannot be too safe. While speculation is discouraged, investment cannot be too risky. This might have productive efficiency, spillover benefits, positive externalities for the economy through linking returns to real entrepreneurial effort. The second one is fair profit sharing. Symmetric profit sharing, an ideal form would be musharaka, is the preferred contract form providing effort incentives for the manager of the venture, while both the investor and management have a fair share in the venture's realized profit. And why it is important? Aligning the management incentives with those of the investor may once again have productive efficiency spillover benefits for the economy through linking realizable returns to the real entrepreneurial effort. The third one, no gharar, no undue ambiguity or uncertainty. This principle aims to eliminate activities or contracts that are gharar by eliminating exposure of either party to excessive risk. Thus, the investor and manager must be transparent in writing the contract. One of the largest ayah in the Quran is writing the contract, must take steps to mitigate controllable risk and avoid speculative activities with high levels of uncontrollable risk. Now, this may limit the extent to which there are imperfect and asymmetric information. That's part of life in financial contracting. As part of a profit-sharing arrangement, information problem might, for example, provide the conditions for opportunist behavior by the venture capital through moral hazard and adverse selection, undermining investment in all similar ventures in the first instance. Finally, halal versus haram sectors. Now, investing in certain haram sectors is prohibited, since they are considered to cause not only individual harm, but in societal harm. Now, a lot of new movements are coming to the market, so we have to be careful about where our money is being invested in, not about the SDG and a few other, but real haram that has been prohibited in the religious text. Now, certain sectors, it has been found from the empirical literature, the sin industry pays a higher rate of return. So if we do not put a constraint, regulatory, otherwise people get into this type of activities, and that will cause societal harm, so we need to really stop it. Now, when you talk about SME from the data standpoint, the demand and supply of SMEs, like for example, my country of birth, Bangladesh, 90% Muslim country, there's a high demand for Islamic finance, even though there is Islamic banking law in this country. But if you look at, on the other hand, Turkey, it's almost 99%, you have only 5% that the demand part is coming from that side. Now, the demand and supply for Islamic finance and Islamic SME finance specifically has to be analyzed from various perspectives, put into context with the factors related to innovative financial solution, tackling financial inclusion, benefiting from potential investment opportunities, as well as growing Muslim population and the Sharia preferences. Muslim, 23%, the last figure 2010, and supposed to be 30% with 2.2 billion by 2030. So Muslim population is growing. The underrepresentation of Islamic financial assets compared to conventional financial assets is also witnessed within the Islamic countries, especially compared to the percentage of Muslims residing in respecting countries. So it's not only the Muslim majority countries, there's a high demand. Where I live now in the United States, there's a demand for Islamic finance. There is about 10 million Muslim people. They want to lead their life according to the Islamic way. If you look at now Islamic finance, SME lending to SME lending, if you look at preference, for example, Pakistan, 25%, but only 11% are being met. What I'm trying to say, the existing data show there's a huge imbalance between demand and supply for SME financing through Islamic way. A highly probable reason for such gap could be the lack of Sharia-compliant products. In the previous panel, everybody emphasized on the importance of human capital. I have not seen, I have traveled quite a bit extensively, I do work in this area. There is not a even real curriculum for Islamic financial banking program anywhere. I think I would request Al Baraka or any other forum really put your resources to develop curriculum, to develop textbook, in order to create the new generation of Islamic finance scholar. This is a real need for it. The risk-averse approach of banks, and specifically Islamic banks, has led to a narrow product range offered to SMEs in this country, almost non-existent. Last 50 years, I do research in this area, very few limited Islamic financial products are coming out. You may say, why is the case? Because, it's a born-again syndrome. So if you look at the Islamic industry, even in Turkey, most of the senior manager used to work in conventional finance, and all of a sudden dream, born again, they converted, but the mindset, it takes time. The skill set that you need to generate, it takes time. So we need to really start from the very bottom, and the bottom is what? I always say three things the new Islamic finance scholar should have: Sharia knowledge, modus operandi of banking and finance, and technology. Without three, the Islamic finance industry will not move forward, will not create new product, specifically for SME financing. So when we talk about different options for SMEs, we have asset-based, typical working capital, Murabha, Ijara, Salam. We have the equity-based, we have the Musharaka, diminishing Musharaka, Mudaraba. Unfortunately, Islamic banks, I would not blame them. I have analyzed many Islamic banks. If you look at their asset portfolio, they do not get into these things. 90% are Murabha. 10% they do individually, but that's a different story. So we really need the asset-based or risk-sharing financial products must be brought into picture. There are other two things that are missing. The venture capital and private equity has to come into this picture. I can tell you a lot of Middle Eastern GCC money is being invested in the United States in Islamic way, but through the private equity capital market. Nobody has a data on this thing, and one estimate shows about 3 trillion the sovereign wealth fund are being invested in Europe and many other countries. But that money could have been channeled to Muslim countries. We are talking about the Muslim Ummah, and Islamic finance is one way of achieving this. We have recently published a paper in King Abdulaziz University Journal of Islamic Economics. We have given different structure for SME Sukuk. So I just, for the sake of time, so this is the structure, just want to give you. So you have the investment Sukuk, traditionally issued SME Sukuk, SME pooling. Then you have the digitally issued SME Sukuk, because technology is important. On the other hand, you have the charitable Sukuk to attract the social sector, and few of the scholars talked about in previous session. That's very important. So this is a figure explaining the stage of traditionally issued SME Sukuk, and this is structured. I'm going to put SMEs. So these are the structure can be followed whenever you try to come with product, from idea, as Ahmed Ahsan said, to actually implementation. So this where you need to really go back to the drawing board. You really need to structure, you need to implement and see whether it works, and they come back, and that's the way this SME industry will grow. And then the venture capital and private equity, I do emphasize. One number I want to give you, in the United States, in 2012, 500,000 new ventures generated about 3 million jobs. We talk about innovation. A tiny country, Israel, has patent more than the 57 white Muslim countries generate each year. We really need to focus on this innovation, the education, human capital formation. But that ideal entrepreneur structure, you have to have access to funding, you have to have entrepreneur culture, and recently I'm doing a study on Saudi Arabia, and at the courtesy of Sheikh Yusuf, that I'm running a survey on the entrepreneurship model in Saudi Arabia, and find the Islam actually an entrepreneur religion. Supportive regulatory and tax regimes, education system everybody's talking about, and we really need to coordinate the public, private, and voluntary sector together. So now the angel investor. You talk about Apple, the largest company in the world. This guy, Steve Jobs, even didn't finish college, but he had an idea. Angel investor came in, gave him helping hands. We need to promote this thing. I say this very often. We have a very high net worth individuals in the Muslim world. If they can just reach 10% of their capital, risk capital, and there are 30%, one estimate shows the OIC Muslim countries, the college graduates, either unemployed or underemployed. And they want to bring this because the government cannot give jobs to all of these people. You really need to bring this in, and Islamic finance can be an ideal tool through the angel investors and crowdfunding. So there are different challenges, and I offer some of the suggestions, what challenges that we wish product offerings, what can be done. Standardization is a problem. There's a transaction cost issue. There is a mobile collateral. Information sharing is a big issue, because when you want to give, this information has to be correctly, collected and disseminated. We need to understand human resources. You have to create the incentive for the college graduates to come to this field. Otherwise, they will go to lucrative field, which may not help the Islamic finance industry. Financial literacy is very important. It's not only the people who are providing the finance, because if you run within the organization, frequently check how much they know. In every professional field, if you're a doctor, you have to do a continuing education to keep you current, but not probably in Islamic finance industry. They need to be educated, and also the masses, they have to understand what is Islamic finance in order to increase their demand, increase their tenacity to the Islamic finance product. Now, I will have this thing. So what I'm trying to do right now in Saudi Arabia, actually I'm coming from Jeddah. So what I did, I structured, just to give you a preview, hopefully you'll be able to present in another conference. Now, I developed a structured question. There are 7 issues that I look at. Attitude of Saudi entrepreneurs to westernization and modernization. Attitude of Saudi entrepreneur to the Saudi cultural values and belief system. Understanding of Saudi entrepreneur perception of entrepreneurial activity. Attitude of Saudi entrepreneurs towards the role of Islamic values in their business behavior and practices, and attitude of Saudi entrepreneurs toward the Islamic approach to entrepreneurship and development, and attitude of Saudi entrepreneurs to the role of Islam in cultivating, promoting a vibrant entrepreneurial culture, and finally the religious devotion of Saudi entrepreneurs. So this is a preliminary trailer, what I find. They are very positive attitude to Islamic entrepreneurship. The SME owners and the regulators believe that Islam is an entrepreneurial religion. Entrepreneurship to be religious as well as economic activity. They should generate halal income, and through generating the halal income, they're not only helping themselves, also helping the society. So there are different developmental theories. You know, one theory said that Islam is an hindrance to economic development in Muslim majority countries. That has been totally dispelled, rejected from my preliminary survey data. So we really need to bring Islamic values into our economic activities, for financial activities to promote this industry. So I have 5 different case studies. I was told very quickly. Hello Gold, A Warning, A-Word Wealth Management Islamic FinTech. Then you have Wahed Invest, it was first Sharia compliant robot advisory platform. Then you have Behave, Mina's first regulated peer-to-peer lending platform. And Blossom Finance is a Sharia compliant microfinance that started in the United States and branched out to other countries. And finally, LaunchGood, crowdfunding platforms for Muslim. Believe Muslim values should be shared with the world. LaunchGood provides ecosystem for values to flourish, to manifest. Now, cloud farming will take a different scale because the new generation, Generation G, Gen Z, is more socially oriented. Regardless of their faith tradition, they want to help the society, they want to help the environment. So anything that attracts, so you can generate this money through the crowdfunding model in order to invest into SMEs on different types. And this is being popular. Indonesia is leading the sector right now in terms of crowdfunding platform that is being generated. And that is basically it. There's a number of done. Just I want to show you. So there are some references from my own study and other studies which I used to make this presentation, and hopefully the presentation will be made available, and the students, those who want to learn, they can go back to my studies and the other studies to learn more. And thank you very much for giving me this platform. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.